our pleasure to introduce our speaker today, Shauna Shepherd. Shauna's been coming to this church with her husband Tobias for the past year or so, and she's one of these gals that just, like a lot of you, that comes here on Sundays and just enjoys it, which is what we want. But this time she decided to step up, and so a few months ago she said she'd like to speak here. And she's a fascinating person. She's got a very interesting background. Her dad was of the Métis tribe, nation tribe, up in centered in Canada, and they also lived in Alaska. They were right on the border. But her mother was Irish, so it makes for a perfect person to come here to the fellowship. But I left my glasses at home today, so I'm going to let. This comes with age, I think. But I'm going to let Sarah read to you this beautiful write-up on Shauna.
Read both paragraphs? Yeah. Okay. It's my pleasure. Okay, so from the Métis Nation, Shauna Leigh Shepherd is a licensed professional counselor and expressive arts therapist for over a decade. She is the founder and director of Metamorphosis Psychology, a new psychology method for transformational times. The concept for Metamorphosis Psychology came to her after being in COVID-19 lockdown, evacuation of her home as a wildfire destroyed an entire city, and after giving birth to her first child. Shauna has studied under renowned spiritual masters throughout India of non-dualistic nature and integrative methods for over 25 years. Although many spiritual masters had attempted to guide her through transformational consciousness, much like the swift jolt to the head with a stick by an unforgiving, relentless Zen teacher, she has been brought to her knees by a tiny toddler who jolts her into being present at every request for snacks, potty breaks, or loving and affection. This talk of the verbing of love comes before Valentine's Day, a national holiday often associated with romantic love. Let us open our hearts and mind and welcome Shauna and her inspired message.
Thank you. Thank you. Enjoy yourself.
Thank you for that. I want to deeply, deeply thank Sharon Solomon for making this all possible, because she's watching my child right now. And I wouldn't be able to talk if that didn't happen. And I also want to deeply thank Nicole, actually, for encouraging me to stand up and to talk, because it's been a long, long time since I did that. I get to talk about my favorite thing, the verbing of love. So my father taught me about love. He was from the Métis Nation and took me and my sister fishing. He was quite the comedian, and I quickly followed suit as a child, unpeeling a banana with precision and then filling it back up with rocks and gluing it back together. And then saran wrapping the toilet seat. He was also a pianist and an academic, though struggled with alcoholism and mental illness. When he took his life in my early 20s, I traveled to India with my best friend, living my life like a sack of potatoes being pushed around. And it was then that I surrendered to the kindness and love from the world, which continues to astonish me to this day. Mothers around the world took me in and would tell me, "Girl, you need to eat," and then would feed me. They would feed me food that they could barely afford in their modest homes made of mud and dirt floors. Have you ever noticed that the English language has a lot of nouns? I love the native language because it's primarily of verbs and describes the energetic movement of love that moves through life. In Ojibwe, mikana, The word is often translated as road or path, but the root verb means it goes along. In Lakota, minna, it flows or it nourishes. In Navajo, chizohoni, often translated as oak tree, but it more literally describes something that forms slender, tall things, referring to the tree's leaves and branches. Yikayi, this means dawn or daybreak, yet it describes the action of light spreading across the land, portraying dawn as an unfolding process rather than a fixed point in time. In Hopi, tuwa, typically translated as rock, but the root verb means to become solid, emphasizing the process by which something comes to be firm or enduring rather than focusing on the object. Tutumsi, translated to breath in English, actually means the act of breathing, shifting the focus from a thing, breath, to an action or process, breathing. My mother, who is Irish American, taught me about the hard aspects of love. Her favorite Irish blessing, may those that love us, and for those who don't love us, may God turn their hearts. And if he can't turn their hearts, may he turn their ankles so that we may know them by their limping. My sister taught me of unconditional love. Never judgment entered her being, an avid reader, curious of the world's perspectives. My failed relationships taught me to be courageous and loving. Courageous and loving is a willingness to embrace vulnerability, uncertainty, and emotional risk in relationships over and over. To dare to open your heart fully, even when there's a possibility of rejection, hurt, or loss. To love someone when there are differences that cannot be reconciled, and to continue loving even at a distance. My life partner, Tobias, taught me to never give up on love and to practice. And to practice even when no one agrees and the world shouts its bad advice. We met later in life at an eco-village in North Carolina, and I prayed to God to send me my forever partner, and a miracle beyond miracles, so without a doubt that I knew it was him. I wanted God to choose my partner, not for me to choose it. And God did perform miracle after miracle. Tobias had the same wish, and we met where the two rivers meet, and he wished for someone the same age, and we are one day apart. We would struggle with pandemics, wildfires on the West Coast, and becoming new parents. I asked my grandmother for advice on marriage, and she would point to these elaborate 5 or 6 foot mosaic sculptures of various animals that she created out of ceramic plates. It was the act of creating art when things got tough, of course. No, Shauna, how do you think I got all those broken plates? When me and your grandfather would fight, I'd break a plate. And I over the years, I kept them and I finally made something out of it. My daughter taught me about love. I had planned a home birth due to several reasons, one being it was the height of COVID-19 and hospitals were a place of infection where you could possibly die. I think we all remember when things were really crazy then. I went into labor on lockdown. It would need an emergency C-section due to developing preeclampsia, diabetes, and the baby having multiple issues where we would die. I didn't know what to do, so I went around the house and I took every ceramic pot that I could find and I smashed it. I was determined to be fully awake and aware and present during the act of birthing, no matter what form it took. The greatest fear I have ever known was on those 3 days. While I was awake and on the table, my legs and arms in the formation strapped to a metal cross to bring forth life through an opening in my belly. I had entered the terrible void, where there is crystal clear silence, and the world stands still on the verge of our deaths. You musicians out there know this void well. The most angelic song came, the sound of sequoias crying as she entered the world. The sound of universal love and grace. The most beautiful sound, like gold running down my spine. I knew I'd cry a lot at this talk. You always do when you love, huh? Nature, and particularly the Yuba River, has taught me about love. When I could turn to no one, I held on to the large grandfather rock bigger than my body and cried and grieved a sadness that only the stone could hold and understand as the river washed my soul. The rock taught me the forever practice of tuwa, becoming solid, so that I may hold others grieving, so that they could touch the other side of the coin of grief, embracing bliss and the preciousness of gratitude within impermanence. Now I'm going to give a little silent space for you to recall. So you might want to close your eyes and sitting in a comfortable position. I want you to recall someone or a place in nature that has taught you about love. Well, thinking of your best memory. We'll take a couple breaths there. If it feels comfortable, you can place your hand onto your heart and just noticing the sensations inside of your body, almost like a snapshot of this feeling. This is the feeling of love generated within you. This is a truth that you can carry no matter where you go or whatever time it is. It's available to you whenever you want. All you have to do is remember and connect with that universal loving consciousness. All right, good. Okay. So I wanted to share with you a story. Does everyone like stories? I love stories. My 4-year-old. And this one's called The Keeper of the Fire. Long ago, in a village surrounded by vast plains and ancient forests, there lived an elder named Nokomis. She was known as the Keeper of the Fire, for she tended the great communal fire that burned at the center of the village. The fire was not only a source of warmth and light, but also a sacred flame that symbolized the connection between the people, the land, and the Creator. Nokomis was respected for her wisdom and gentleness, though her hands were weathered from years of work. Her touch was always tender, and her words carried the soothing powers of the wind through the pines. She often spoke of the fire as a living spirit, saying, "This flame is like love." We have a fire right here, so we can kind of look at it. "This flame is like love. It must be nurtured, protected, and shared. Without it, we grow cold and we forget who we are." One harsh winter, a young boy named Kai wandered into the forest alone. His heart was heavy with grief, for his father had recently passed into the spirit world. Though the villagers had surrounded him with kindness, Kai felt the weight of his loss as an unbearable loneliness. He believed that no one could truly understand his pain. One evening, as the sun set and the shadows stretched long across the snow, Nokomis found Kai sitting by the edge of the forest. He was hunched over, staring at the cold, white ground. She approached quietly, carrying a small bundle of wood and embers wrapped in deerskin. "Kai," she said softly, "why do you sit here alone away from the fire?" Kai looked up, his eyes filled with tears. The fire doesn't warm me anymore, he said. It's as if my father's spirit has taken all the warmth with him. Nokomis knelt beside him and unwrapped the bundle, revealing a glowing ember. This ember, she said, is the love your father gave you. It burns even in the coldest of times, but it's up to you to keep it alive. Kai stared at the glowing ember as Nokomis gently placed it in his hand. What do I do with it? He asked. First, you breathe life into it, Nokomis said, her voice steady. Then you add small pieces of wood, one by one, until it grows into a flame. The ember is small, but its warmth is strong if you care for it. Kai hesitated but followed her instructions. He cupped the ember in his hands and blew softly. Nokomis handed him twigs and dry leaves, which he carefully fed the ember. And to his surprise, the tiny spark grew into a small, steady flame. Its warmth began to melt the frost in his fingers, and little by little, his heart. Nokomis smiled. This is how love works. Even when it feels like the fire has gone out, the embers remain. You must tend to it with care, through memory, kindness, and sharing it with others. The next day, Kai returned to the village with a new sense of purpose. He began helping Nokomis tend the great fire, carrying the wood, stoking the flames, and teaching the younger children to respect its power. Over time, he began to understand that the fire was not just a symbol of warmth. It was a living reminder, an action of love his father had given him, and the love that he could give to others. One bitterly cold night, a neighboring village arrived seeking shelter. The fire had gone out during a fierce snowstorm, leaving them lost and vulnerable. Without hesitation, Kai and Nokomis gathered embers from their communal fire and gave them to the travelers. As they lit new fires to warm their hands and homes, the visitors thanked Kai. He realized then that love, like the flame, grows stronger when it's shared. My father's ember is still burning, he thought, because I carry it in my heart and I give it to others. Years later, when Nokomis joined the ancestors, Kai became the new keeper of the fire. He carried forward her teachings, reminding the people that the flame was sacred, not just because it warmed their body, but because it connected their spirits to one another and to the Creator. And so through seasons of abundance and hardship, the fire continues to burn at the center of the village. Its light reflects the enduring love of the people, a love that was tended with care, shared with strangers, and passed down through generations, like the ember that never fades. And even now, when the wind whispers through the plains and the stars shimmer like embers in the night sky, the story of Kai and the fire reminds us that love, like the flame, lives on as long as we nurture it. Love is a verb. It is an active, energetic being. It is not a thing. It is not a noun. Nikai chichayikien. My being loves your being. Take care. And so I wanted to invite Tobias Tillman, my partner, up. He wrote a poem about love.
This one's called Understanding Love, and like most of my poetry, it doesn't rhyme. I feel it speaks more to our soul when we're not distracted about just rhyming. Understanding love. Loving someone is a choice that requires a lot of strength. It's more than just an emotion and how you feel about your someone. It's more than a thought and how highly you think of your someone. The kind of love that prophets, gurus, and saints spoke of. the love that Jesus demonstrated. That's the strongest love in the universe. The love of understanding. Not standing over someone with judgment, but standing under them with compassion. That's the choice. That's the strong love of God that Jesus gave us. Have you ever shouted, "For the love of God," when you have to repeat yourself over and over again? Because deep down, our greatest desire is to be understood, to be loved and accepted, to be cared for and treated equally. That is the love of God that we cry out for. That's the love Jesus showed the woman with the alabaster jar who anointed his feet with her perfume and her tears and dried them with her hair. In Luke 7:47, Jesus said, "This is why I tell you that her many sins are forgiven, because she has shown great love. The one who is forgiven little loves little." So Jesus didn't judge her the way that others did. He returned her love with understanding. Jesus showed us that understanding love when he washed our feet, and he fed the masses instead of sending them away, when he healed the sick and included the outcasts, and literally carried our heavy burdens to teach us how to carry each other's. To truly love someone is to understand that they are humans just like you. To see them as beautiful with a piece of God and a piece of love in their hearts. So let's wash that dust of judgment from our eyes and look at each other with the understanding love of God.